What's up guys, Psyche here and welcome to another balance change video. It's been a couple months since my last balance change video and this one's pretty important. This one goes over 4 survivors that have been quite bad in the past few months. Let's just say that. Now, to my surprise, no one has made any video going over these balance changes, showing exactly what's been changed and is it even viable, is it even good in the first place. No one's made a video on it, not even Schmitty to my surprise. So I figured, why not we do a video about it? Why don't we talk about these changes, especially since many of you probably don't have all 4 of these characters. So I know all of you have Gardener, but you probably don't have the rest of the characters. So why not show it to you guys? Why not show what's been changed and explain if these changes are even viable, are they even good in the first place? So as I go along these changes, I'm going to move myself on the right side of the screen so you guys can see everything over here, what's new with the balance changes right over here as I go along them. And the first one we are going to go over is Barmaid. Now Barmaid has a couple problems. I'm going to go over the problems of each character before I go into what's been changed about them, and let's see if they were fixed or not. But the problem with Barmaid was that, well, let's compare it to Perfumer actually first. Well, Perfumer has 3 perfumes. Barmaid only has 2 bottles. Perfumer can immediately heal herself. Barmaid can only heal herself after 20 seconds. Perfumer can use all 3 of her abilities, while Barmaid can only use 1. Making a second bottle is way too risky, because if she makes it in the middle of a kite, she takes half damage, and if a hunter gets a hit on you during that time, you're messed up. It's basically giving the hunter a free hit that they didn't even have to get. Just in general, Barmaid's bottles are just not very good because they take too long to heal you and you get very few of them. Now what they changed about Barmaid is, the first thing they did was they made it so the bottles only reduce your health by 1/4. So every time you make a new drink, you actually only take 1/4 damage instead of 1/2, and this makes it so that you can make bottles more reliably in the middle of a kite. Because before, the problem would be that you would take 1/2 damage and then you might be susceptible to a blink or something like that. Now you can make a second bottle in the middle of a kite and then drink it and hope you don't die when you take damage and drink the bottle. We'll get to that in a second. Now number 2, the second thing they did about Barmaid is she can make bottles when she's injured now. Now that the bottles only deal 1/4 damage to her, she can make a second one, or a first one if she didn't already make one, if she's already damaged. If the hunter, for whatever reason, leaves you, which is never going to happen, but if they for some reason leave you, you can make a second bottle. It's going to take extra time, but it's totally worth it. And the last buff is that when the Barmaid drinks all the drinks she has, including the mix that makes her fast for 2 seconds, she will lose her item and she can search for items in chests. Now, that's a nice quality of life change, but that's not going to make her better necessarily, because looking in chests is not a good thing. But at least you can search for a new item after you've already used all your bottles. So the devs even left a justification here for the adjustment. They say that the Barmaid is currently weak, and because of this she cannot fully fulfill her role being support/kiter. We've reduced her intoxication value by half so that the Barmaid will use her skills more often. By this, I'm thinking that they mean in the middle of a kite. At the same time, we expect them to use them more consistently. Now, that's great and all, and sure, you can make bottles in the middle of a kite now, but the problem still stands that it takes way too long to heal. 20 seconds is way too long. Violent Snow can hit you by then. A bomb, a sculptor statue, even a ripper blade if you didn't drink it right away. It just messes you up. There's a lot of ifs, there's a lot of things going on here. You have to drink the bottle as soon as possible, and even then you're still very susceptible and you may just end up wasting it for no reason. So even when you are injured, you can make another bottle if it ends up failing, but it's still going to take 10 seconds. That's way too long. Like I said, that only works if the hunter for whatever reason leaves you, which they will not. I highly doubt that they will. It just makes no sense. The changes they gave to her are nice hypotheticals, but they're so unlikely to happen that it doesn't make any sense. So even though it does help her make bottles in the middle of a kite, it doesn't help when she drinks it. She still has the same problem. It still takes way too long to heal. Sure, you could give her a Seer Owl, but what kind of survivor isn't good with a Seer Owl? Just play Perfumer and ask for Seer Owls then, since it's much more reliable, much more efficient, plus you get more items out of it. In general, it's a good change. It's a good change in general, but it's not going to increase her rank on the tier list because there are just way better survivors than her. It just makes no sense to rank her up higher on the tier list. The next change that's happening to a survivor is Gardener. Gardener has a lot of issues. First of all, her ability is completely useless. Sure, you can destroy chairs, but hunters can repair no problem. On top of that, she has a bubble when she starts the game, but that bubble only protects her for so long, and after that, it's completely useless. She will no longer have the bubble. So what they're doing is they're not changing the toolbox portion of it, unfortunately, but they are changing the bubble portion. So what they did is after 20 seconds of the shield being gone, you can actually summon a second shield by stopping yourself for 2 seconds. So if you stop yourself for 2 seconds, if you're decoding, if you're vaulting a window or vaulting pallets, that will not count as stopping. You will have to literally stay still for 2 seconds, and then a shield will summon for 5 seconds. Now the hunter can very easily wait out that 5 seconds, but we're gonna talk that out a little bit later. And for each successful summon of the shield, the next time she wants to summon a shield, she will have another cooldown of a bonus 10 seconds. So what I mean by that is she had to wait 20 seconds for the first shield. If she summons a second shield and then that shield goes away, she has to wait 30 seconds for the next one, and 40 seconds, and so on for each shield she summons. Now the time it takes to stay still stays the same. She still has to wait 2 seconds. She still gets the shield for 5 seconds once she stays still for 2 seconds. But my problem with Gardener is this. For newer players, this is terrible for new players because it's encouraging players to kite in a bad way. What I mean by this is you should never stay still in the middle of a kite. You need to always be moving. You cannot stay still at all. So the fact that they're encouraging Gardener players or any new players in general to stay still in order to benefit off of it is kind of redundant, because that 2 seconds where you're staying still, you could have been dropping or vaulting a pallet and transition to a new area. Instead, you're standing there summoning a shield when you could do the same thing with a pallet or a window. I mean, when are you ever going to get a chance to stand still and summon a shield when you could be walking over to a pallet, which is much more reliable? The hunter just gets way too much speed on you before you can even summon that shield. Even if you do summon the shield, that's nice on you. They instantly break it, or they could just wait it out. The shield lasts too short. It's like having three seers on the same team and then sending an owl. Hunter can just wait it out since the owl takes a whole 5 seconds to disappear. It's not good. And I've had some players tell me that the bubble can be useful for pallet camping. The problem with pallet camping is the only time you want to camp a pallet is if you're risking the hunter hitting you through the pallet. It's the only time you shouldn't drop the pallet right away. Otherwise, you should need to drop it right away, unless it's also a bad pallet that the hunter can easily walk around. But you shouldn't be using those pallets anyway. You should be using good pallets that you can throw right down, because if the hunter goes around or if they break it, you can instantly be on the move. That is how it works. Whether the hunter goes around or breaks it, you're always on the move. There is no time for the shield to summon. And that's why this Gardener buff isn't that helpful. I really wish they just brought it back so the toolbox destroys chairs and the hunters can't repair it unless they use abnormal like it used to be. I don't know why devs just don't do that instead of trying to buff the shield mechanism. It's too circumstantial. It's not very reliable way of kiting. And in general, her tier, just like with Barmaid, is not going to really increase because, like Barmaid, it's a little bit too circumstantial. And on top of that, there are way better survivors. So as a result, why should her tier on the tier list change? It just makes no sense. I'm going to have to give my seal of disapproval for Gardener buff. I'm sorry. Here's a buff that's been happening a lot to this survivor. Now, this survivor has gotten a ton of buffs in the past, and it's Magician. Now, Magician used to be S tier back in the day because the best hunter in the day was Clown, and the best counter to Clown back in the day was Magician. There was no Enchantress, there were no Stunners, there wasn't even Perfumer at the time, so all you had was a Magician that was the greatest counter to Clown, and he was a pretty darn good counter. But unfortunately, in recent times, they've introduced more and more new hunters that don't have to rely on hitting from behind. They can use stuff like Violinist Notes or bombs or statues, things that have an area of effect damage or can hit you from the front, stuff like that. And is another one where your wand won't really get much value. There's just so many hunters, even the hunters like Anne, who are not that great, still do a good job against Magician. Really, I think the devs are trying to buff him because he used to be so good back in the day and now he's so bad. Let's see what they did to change him. Magician will not get Terror Shock when using a wand. Finally, Magician will not get Terror Shock. Awesome. How much will that help though? I mean, I don't think that much, since he rarely got Terror Shock anyway. And if you got Terror Shock as a Magician, you were a bad Magician. You need to play Magician more. And the second buff is that they updated how long it takes to rescue him from 60 to 40. Back in the day, it used to be 100%. It used to take twice as long to rescue him. And then they nerfed it from 100 to 60. They buffed the speed of the illusion. Now they're removing Terror Shock. They're increasing the speed of being rescued again. And let me tell you right now, this is really sad because Magician is not going to go up on the tier list at all. No one's going to use Magician still. Because the problem is that they're not nerfing the broken survivors. This is a third time I'm saying this for the third survivor. If you don't nerf the broken survivors, the weaker survivors will never see use. I feel like Magician could see use if they just gave him a third wand. Combined with all these buffs that they're doing, I feel like he could get some well-deserved attention if they just give him his third wand. Because being invisible is a very strong ability. First Officer proved that really hard, that being invisible is really strong. And Magician is really strong at being invisible, except he leaves no body, no way of tracking him except his tracks. So it's even better, especially now that you can't get Terror Shock, so you're not risking anything even if you do get hit. So I guess in that case you can use your wand more versatilely. Is that even a word? You have more versatility with the wand basically than before. But the problem is, he has only 2 wands. What about Perfumer, who has 3 perfumes? What about Gravekeeper, who has 2 shovels, which are way better than 2 illusion wands? What about Mercenary? Mercenary has 4 elbow pads, forward a whole football, Priestess, rechargeable portals, Prospector with the rechargeable magnets. There's no reason to play Magician. It's just he has no place right now. I'm putting my bets right here. They just give him a third wand, he would be maybe S tier. Definitely A tier, because being invisible is very strong, especially since he's already invisible every time he's rescued, so it helps a lot there. I think he just needs that little boost. If he got that little bitty boost, he would be great. But for now, I'm sorry, but he can't really be that much better. Maybe I'll give him a shot on stream. I think he'd be a lot of fun on stream, but as it stands right now, I'm more interested in wildling. And we're going to get it into wildling right now. So let's talk about a survivor whose buffs actually matter, and that is wildling. Now, wildling is a little bit more complicated because he already had a lot of complication to him before. Now it's even more complicated because this change of nerfs and buffs, well, actually, it's like a rework. It's a mix of nerfs and buffs to balance him out. What the biggest thing they did to wildling is they didn't do is that his decode speed was too slow. Not only was his decode speed too slow, but it just wasn't worth his pig. Because yes, he was impossible to catch, but even though he was impossible to catch, no hunter would ever chase him. Even when he tried to protect his teammates, it wasn't a very good job at it. He had to get really close. It was really risky. Sure, you had some people like John get away with it and get good use out of it, but once the hunter picks them up, there is nothing you can do. At least Forward could do something. You cannot do anything. On top of that, wildling is really bad at walking to the chair because he had a negative 10%. It might be even more. I think it's a 10% reduced walking speed. So it's going to be really tough for him to get to the chair. Basement rescues are practically impossible. Sure, if you use a pig to get in, then what are you going to use to get out? That is the problem with wildling. And so let's see what they did to change wildling. So first of all, they reduced his decode debuff from 40 to 30, thank God. So now he decodes only as slow as Forward, so he can actually be argued. Which would you want more, wildling or Forward? Because Forward has a very limited football. The football does more because it stuns, and especially if you get it in the middle of them picking up the survivor, if the hunter's picking up the survivor right as you stun them, the survivor will have no animation. He can immediately start running. Wildling is a little bit weaker because his pig can't stun, but his pig is rechargeable, so there's a key difference right there. On top of that, his second buff is that if you push the hunter, even if you didn't knock him into an object, the person in balloons will struggle 10% faster. Now, there are a couple nerfs to wildlings to balance this out. Every time he dashes, he's going to lose 10% of his pig energy. You guys are going to see right over here that every time I dash with wildling, he's going to lose 10% energy. So that effectively reduces how long you can be on the pig. On top of that, every time you hit the hunter, you are going to lose another 5%. So basically, there's no reason to dash unless it's at the hunter. So you're going to be losing 15%, basically 15% every time you dash, because we're assuming you're going into the hunter. They also reduce how long you can be on the pig from 90 seconds to 65, which is a huge change. On top of that, they did add another buff to wildling, and it's that wildling no longer has to be running while to maintain his rage. In the past, if you stopped at all with wildling, if you stopped moving, his rage would just decrease really fast, and that means you always had to be moving. And if you're always moving, it made it really hard to time your dash to run into the hunter and free the person out of balloons, well, before they get picked up into balloons. He also did another buff to wildling. There's a lot of buffs, where if you miss with the wildling dash, instead of waiting 25 seconds to dash again, you only have to wait 10 seconds. I don't understand why wildling would have to wait 25 seconds if he missed, but no seconds if he didn't miss. That just made no sense. It didn't make any sense at all, basically. So let's look at the justification for this adjustment, because there's actually a pretty long explanation for what the devs did. Basically, they say that the current version of wildling has strong self-defense capabilities, but the decoding ability is very weak and his movement is limited. His movement is still limited, but now at least his pig will help out freeing survivors more often. They didn't actually say that his movement is still limited. I'm just noticing that. And it's expected that this will provide more maneuvers for the player and to improve the stability of the wildling role. So basically, he's more of a rescue character now. He's more like forward, he's more helpful to the team, and when he's not helping his team, he can actually decode a cipher before having to rescue a teammate. By lowering the decoding reduction to 30%, the wildling is now more useful to the team. Great explanation, NetEase. Finally, you did something right, finally. Honestly, they should have just put that one sentence at the beginning and said no more, because we all know wildling was bad just because of his decode. So is wildling good now is the question. This is a little bit hard to answer because we've only seen 1 week of wildling. If you guys go to another Identity 5 YouTuber called Katz has recently been using wildling at a tournament level, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of impressed with what I see. I kind of like what I'm seeing with wildling. I think it's cool how you can rescue teammates. I think it's cool how we can decode as quickly as a forward. I think it's cool that when forward is banned, you can actually pick a wildling now, which is very interesting because wildling, unlike forward, it's impossible to catch a wildling. Unless you're gamekeeper who can hook the wildling off the pig, there is no hunter that can do anything against him. This is a great change because now wildling is still very hard to catch. Sure, he doesn't last on the pig a long time, or as long, but 65 seconds is still a really long time, which makes it impossible to catch him. On top of that, they didn't remove anything that was already on wildling. So wildling can still jump over small terrain. He can jump over fences, he can jump over benches, he can jump over holes in church. It's amazing. Of course, it won't be that useful since you'll probably have a speed boost by then, but it's still a nice thing. It could be helpful. I'm gonna try him out in stream and test him out, because I think there is potential with this dude. I'm kind of liking where Katz is going with this, and I'm going to give wildling a try. So, would I say wildling is A tier? I would probably say he's A tier now, because he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. He's not a survivor to joke around at. He decodes as quickly as a forward, and he cannot be caught by the hunter. His ability is rechargeable, and that makes him such a big force late game when you're trying to catch a survivor as hunter, and you find a wildling, and the wildling just gets on his pig and runs away from you. You're in trouble then. He's a very big, powerful, late game survivor, similar to Mercenary. How Mercenary, if he saves those elbow pads, there's no way you're catching Mercenary. So I like wildling. I love these changes. I'm going to test him out. I think he has potential. So we're gonna see. We're gonna keep testing. But overall, this is a great change for wildling. I definitely do approve.
Oh yeah! That was beautiful. That wasn't very good. Something still. Can I jump this? No, I can't jump that. pallet is not really good for hiding behind. Oh, no, I wasn't. I meant I was completely relying on borrowed time. Seriously, who gets lucky like that? Who throws a note like that? Who the heck throws a note like that? Bro, who takes this route? Never mind, I will. Wow, got off the pig the wrong time. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. I still do that. I could have stopped him from teleporting, but I actually pressed the wrong button. That's nice. That's nice. I'm doing wonderful today. I'm a wonderful wildling. I'm just doing beautifully today. I would have been so mad if that didn't count. I am the world's biggest idiot. Why did I just do that? Why did I do that?
Now we're gonna go over Embalmer. Now, what was the problem with Embalmer before? Because Embalmer is a little bit, well, similar to Gardener and Barmaid. Is circumstantial. There are so many problems with Embalmer. First of all, as soon as you place a coffin and you leave that coffin, you have to come back to the coffin every time you want to change the appearance. So you can only change appearance once, but if you want to do that, you have to walk back to the coffin, and it's such a pain in the butt. On top of that, this coffin can only be activated if a survivor gets put on the rocket chair. So, pretty much, if the hunter just refuses to put you on the chair, your coffin will get no value, and you're basically a survivor with no item. Especially late game. Late game hunters will not pick up people who have a coffin on them because they're afraid that the Embalmer put a coffin at the exit gate, and 9 times out of 10, that is what happens. That is what the Embalmer does, and the coffin gets no value. So it's not very good. Hunters can just easily work around it. So, I mean, there's also the whole problem that Embalmer has no ability to help him kite. Let's see what they did to help Embalmer. So, there's a new additional effect for Embalmer. Not only can he now resurrect teammates off of the chair, but he can also resurrect allies who have fallen on the ground. Once the survivor is incapacitated, he can just summon them straight off the ground in a coffin. So this is supposed to help how hunters never pick up survivors with a coffin on them late game. Now, unfortunately, this still counts as being on the rocket chair. If Embalmer, if putting someone on a coffin right after a hunter knocked them down didn't count as being put on the chair, I could see Embalmer being an actual force to be reckoned with, because that's extra time that the hunter has to go across the map and catch the person. Most hunters these days will use teleport. They have trump cards, so they're going to teleport, or if it's like a Wu Chang, it's going to be even easier. Blood Queen, Dream Witch, a lot of things mess up Embalmer in general, so I think it would be better if it didn't count as being on the rocket chair, because most hunters can very easily catch up to the coffin and put the person back on the chair, and it's actually going to be faster than before. It's almost like a nerf than before, because if you were to put a person onto the chair and the Embalmer chose to resurrect the person off the ground, then now the hunter doesn't have to waste time putting the person on the chair. They didn't have to waste time on the animation, making them walk to the chair. Now they could just straight up teleport to the person in whatever means necessary and put them on the chair again. It's actually going to take less time to put them on the chair a second time, and they're going to immediately go to 50% on the rocket chair, which is not good. That was another problem with Embalmer, so I don't see this being fixed. After placing the coffin, Embalmer can actually press the skill button again and move the coffin. So this isn't actually the nerf I was talking about, but this is a buff. They fixed Embalmer. You can now change the position of the coffin. So if the hunter spotted your coffin, you can change positions, summon it to wherever you're standing at that current moment. That has a 20-second recharge time for each time you try to change spots with the coffin. But overall, you're not gonna really be needing to switch coffins quicker than that 20-second cooldown. However, this is where we get into the nerfs. So once the gate is activated, there will be no tide turner effect on the coffin. This is supposed to help with the fact that when you knock down a person with a coffin, how Embalmer can now immediately pick that person up and just send them to the gate. And then tide turner would protect them and they would get a free escape. So the devs had to nerf that. They had to get rid of tide turner once the gate are open. Now, after opening the gate, the coffin cannot be placed in the gate either, so it's like a double nerf to gate. It's two things nerfing Embalmer to make him terrible late game. And finally, when the Embalmer leaves the battlefield, the coffin will disappear from the map. I'm pretty sure that's what happened already. When he would leave the map, the coffin would disappear with it. I guess it didn't, but I mean, the change is good, but then they ruined it. I'm okay with him not having tide turner once the gates have been activated. I think that is broken, how you can knock down a survivor and they just immediately get back up on the Embalmer's command. What I will say though is that I don't like how it counts as being on the chair if you were never put on the chair when you were sent to a coffin. To me, that's what would make Embalmer good, because Embalmer right now has no ability. If you were to make it so that his coffin counted as that ability, where he could pick himself up and not count as being on the chair, then that would make Embalmer good, because that would make Embalmer have the tide turner effect. He wastes time going to the coffin. Plus, he already kited a little bit before that, so it really adds up. And then, hypothetically speaking, if this nerf of not counting as being on the chair never existed, then you would be put on the chair for the first time. You would be at 0% chair progress. And you use your coffin, yes, but it ends up wasting a lot of time, and you could pop 3 ciphers that way. It would actually be really solid, sort of like how Explorer buys time with the book by never being caught by the hunter. It just wastes so much time for the hunter, and that's one whole person the hunter cannot catch because they cannot find them. Embalmer is like the opposite of that. You can find him, but once you find him, even if you knock him down, he could pick himself up, then he could get back in the coffin. But that's not to be, because devs made it so that it counts as being on the chair. So had they not done that, I think Embalmer would be much better, but they did it, and Embalmer as a result is not very good. I feel like he could have been good if it wasn't for that, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. Clearly devs don't care about changing the meta. Before we end it off here, let's see what the devs put as the explanation for what they did to Embalmer. Embalmer is used as a supporting defensive character in regular games, but does not provide the expected full support, because hunters would never chair survivors on the coffin. Therefore, we decided to lower the threshold for using his skill so that the Embalmer could resurrect allies more often. He now has the ability to move the coffin, and it reduces the amount of time the person has to transition to the coffin, the Embalmer, per se. They expanded the scope of the core respawn skill, but at the same time, they nerfed his late game so he is not as strong as he would be. So, I'm okay with them nerfing the late game, but them counting it as being on the chair, even when the person wasn't put on the chair, I don't agree with that, because that just defeats the purpose of the buff. They should not have done that buff, because they should not have done that nerf, because had it not been for the nerf, I would actually want to try Embalmer in rank match. But now there's no point, since, like I said, a lot of hunters have trump card. They could switch to teleport. They could be playing Wuching or Blood Queen, and it won't make a difference. It just wouldn't be very good for you, or your team for that matter. Before we end it off, there are some differences in decoding. Now survivors will be able to move after getting shocked off the cipher. So now calibrations will no longer put you in an animation. You are free from it. The animation still exists, but you can just easily walk off the cipher, and it's like it won't even be there. So this is supposed to help against Wuching, as if Wuching wasn't weak enough already. If you're getting surprise teleported on, let's say the hunter also switches to trump card and uses teleport, and you get a calibration at the wrong time. Or let's say the hunter's just walking up to you and then you get a calibration at the wrong time. It's very helpful. It's a quality of life change I approve, especially since I'm a survivor main. That is pretty much everything that has to do with the changes. So overall, as usual, the changes weren't very meaningful. Except wildling. I like what they did with wildling. But otherwise, the other 4 changes are pretty sad. Not much was done there. Anything that they did make good about the character was instantly removed. by adding a nerf to it. So essentially it's a rework that did nothing, that it just changed the way the character works so that people who were used to the old version now have to learn a new version that is just as bad as the old version. So it's kind of sad, but hey, what are you gonna do about it? That's net ease. I feel like these survivors could be better if they just nerfed the more broken survivors, but hey, that's net ease. I think Wildling definitely went up 4 tiers. He's really good now. Embalmer, kind of sad how what they did to him. Magician and Barmaid and Gardener, they did changes that I just don't think were very meaningful. They just don't change a whole lot. So thank you guys so much for watching. That is basically it. There's nothing else more to say. Like I said, wish these changes were more meaningful, but nothing you can do about it. Anyway, get ready to see some more wildling gameplay in the future, and I will see you all later.